The Comenius Institute crosses three bridges into this particular world. We are interested in helping Christian college students at IUPUI, helping them to understand what they hear and what they see around them from a Christian vantage point. And actually, one of the things that might be helpful for a listening audience to engage is warpandwoof.org. That's WARPANDWOOF.org. And there you'll find a number of recent essays I've written on campus episodes. In fact, yesterday I just published the third one and was on Moody Radio yesterday morning talking about some of those stories and giving some background to what we do at IUPUI, helping Christian college young people to navigate what those kinds of ideas that they hear, perhaps sometimes for the first time. The second bridge we cross is into communities. That's why we emphasize the different folks that come in every single week. We have different guests, and their expertise depends on what it is, what they do, but all of it comes around to one idea, and that is Christians who are doing good around the neighborhood, which is Titus 3, 1, 8, and 14. The third bridge that we cross is into culture. And so our emphasis in culture is to help Christians understand how it is that we should interact in the culture that we have around us. So this morning, we have some great opportunities to talk about neighborliness, talking about the book of Proverbs, coming at this from a biblical vantage point. And after we take a song break, we'll be back talking about neighborhood, talking about the importance of sticking together and coordinating our efforts, not just talking, but me. And we are back, Warp and Woof Radio at RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. You know, HB, this last week I was actually thinking about how many shows we have done. We have done 110 shows. This is 111 today, man. We've been out this a while.
All right, Junior. Well, good for you, because come March 26th, we put in like 365. Actually, is that I did the math, and it'll be 365 days when we do the 7-year anniversary from that first May 28th launch date of 2011. I'm just teasing with you, but I was just marveling at that and really just thankful, man. Doing 7 years of anything and being able to stay around, ain't nothing but grace and mercy. You had to be committed and you had to have some faith, but you know, this ain't nothing but God's work. And but no, congratulations on that, man. And I mean,
pretty cool.
Time is a funny thing, because you know, when you're doing it, you don't understand it, but then when you glance back and say, "Wow, man, 160 of these things." Yeah, that's powerful stuff.
It is that, yeah. And I love that that new picture you've got out there with that 7 with the wings. You know,
oh, we flying, baby. It's takeoff time. Yeah, I'm glad you caught that.
That's really cool. Yeah. I really like that. 7 being the perfect number and all. You know,
well, you know. My birthday is 10/17, and I told you'd have to understand this. If you went into one of the pea shake houses, you can't even play that straight. They make you and they make you break that up and box it because it's got so many powerful numbers in it. I'll tell you about that on the break.
Okay, we'll leave that there for now. At the moment, we are talking about the issue of being.
You asked me on here today. I'm sorry.
You're good, man. You're good. We're talking about being neighbors, and actually, HB and I have been neighbors for about 2.5 years. Certainly not as long as he's been neighbors with others, but we call each other brother, and we're twins, and we're grateful for that, what God has given to us in this particular life and in this particular show. And always grateful. I had just a word here about Janelle Howard. You know, she got married in November, and we were there at the wedding. It was really great and everything, but it was really Janelle who, through other connections, brought us together. Cliff, I think, was involved.
Tracy, that whole crew.
Yeah. That was pretty cool, you know. So these kinds of things, the longevity of it, I think is pretty impressive stuff. You know, we're talking about this issue of neighboring today, and one of the things that kind of stands out about neighborhoods is this concept of renewal. I'm just going to read a couple of verses here from Proverbs chapter 14. Proverbs 14:21 says, "Whoever despises his neighbor is a sinner, but blessed is he who is generous to the poor." And then verse 31, "Whoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him." Sounds like generosity is kind of standing out there, HB.
Absolutely. I mean, we were talking about this off the air, and we were talking about, talking about it and being about it. And there's to me, a fine line between your contribution as a neighbor versus what you say you're going to do as a neighbor. And I think we get caught a lot of the times in, having this grandiose illusion of who we are versus what we do.
Yeah.
And real work, real neighborly efforts they don't get a lot of compliments. They don't get a lot of rewards. They're just acts that are done out of kindness.
Yeah.
Like if you see your neighbor and you know she's 75 or 76 years old, you don't have to go report that I helped take her groceries in the house with her. You don't have to do that. You just do
You
that.
just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you start touting that you do it, then I'm wondering what you're really about.
Yeah.
So I think neighbor, and part of what's wrong with our country today is we don't have neighborhoods any longer.
Yeah, we have the back porch. We don't have the front porch.
Yeah.
We were trying to hide someplace. Yeah.
Sneak in through your little perfect doorway to your car, to your house, where you don't have to be part of the outside elements of the world. And truthfully, I think that's kind of, put the fracture in what we do as a community.
Yeah, I certainly agree. The front porches 100-plus years ago were really nice. Doesn't mean that everything was nice back then, but what it does mean is that actually people were looking at each other and concerned about the neighbor across the street or next to them. But this idea of generosity, I wanted to come back to that just because, we were talking about this earlier, but also because, if you're not contributing, and this is an important idea. If you're not contributing, then you have to ask yourself the question, what part of Titus 3 are you doing? Because Titus 3 says,
do good.
Do good.
Do
not
good.
Talk good.
Do good.
Do good.
And it says it 3 times to pretty much make emphasis on do good.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't any other thing that you can substitute it with, but do good. And so I just think that, we have to take a self-check a lot of times.
Isn't that the
look
truth?
Inside. So,
Yeah. We have to step back and recognize that there's a lot of work going on around us. Folks need us, and we need to step up and help them with that. And just let me make this general comment. This is the third quarter for us. Our financial year runs from July 1 to July 1. And so actually this about 6-7 weeks from now, HB, we're going to be doing a great jazz mixer again, these wonderful events that you've been putting together. But in May 18th, we're really going to be focused on the Comenius Institute. We're really grateful for that, you being a board member and all. And one of the things I want to say to everybody this morning is you don't have to wait till May 18th to contribute. This is a sustainable development fundraiser for the future. We're looking for establishing a fiscal financial base for us to operate from, and this mixer is just a great opportunity to do that. But if you can't come out May 18th, 6 to 9 o'clock, hear some great jazz, see some great students that we've got coming in, then by all means, donate online. Go to our website, ComeniusInstitute.org.com, and don't hit that donate button and see what you can do to help us out. This contribution thing, generosity, HB. This is what we've been talking about earlier today. People needing to step up.
Yeah, and with that being said, time is valuable, and a lot of times you can't participate in the actual event, but you can contribute. And I just think you take it upon yourself to do the part that you can.
You can, yeah.
Just the part that you can. Like you say, do good, do good, do good. Do something. And I posted it last week, and pardon the expression, but I said, give a dang about something. Just care about something.
Yep.
And when you care about something, you contribute, much like you just said about your dear friend and colleague who lost her cat after 18 years old. You don't understand loving a cat for 18 years, but you do understand the loss of something.
Yeah,
so that's your contribution to that do-good theory. I mean, nobody's asking you to go buy a new cat or start being a cat lover. Just do good by saying, I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was a loss.
And be sincere about it, and see the things that are around you that folks really care about. Shoot, man, I don't really care what it is. My neighbor across the street, he's got a beautiful yellow Corvette. Man, this thing is just cherry. It's marvelous. I love it. He asked me to go out and drive it with him in the summertime, just take it out for a little bit of miles. But, what I'm saying to him is, what? I appreciate what you appreciate. The things that you care about, I want to at least say, what? That's pretty cool. I'm really glad you shared that with me. This is an important thing. Whatever it is, folks are doing around us. It could be today, man. We need to be out there helping folks shovel their driveways, if nothing else.
And what's so funny is when we start talking about neighborly and doing good and this this whole ecosystem of life that we live in. We've got so many people suffering, and then we've got the church and the Christian people of the church. What is the responsibility, man, of
boy.
what we do and what we should be doing in contributing to this issue? Because, most of the times we're talking about help, we're talking about people who are in need, people who have lost some things that make life comfortable. So what should we do?
Oh, my word. Don't even get me started on this. This is, I think, one of the things that really gets me most concerned about the church, capital T, capital C, across the board. I'll give you one statistic. This is a really sad statistic, but it's true. In evangelical Christian churches, only 2.7%, people only give 2.7% every single week. Now, that's on an average. That's not talking about individuals or any particular church. It's just generally across the board, Christians only give 2.7% of their income to major contributory issues and organizations, things that need money, folks that need to be cared for. And this goes, there should be something even beyond this. We often talk about the tithe. But, in the First Testament, the Old Testament, the tithe was 10%, literally. That's what the Hebrew word means. But if you go to Leviticus and you realize all the other times that God is saying to his people, you need to give to all these other things, we're talking about 25+%.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about tithe. And I know this is getting off track because I listen a lot of times when we talk and we act like tithing is strictly a scripture-based, church-based initiative. When I read my scripture, I'm reading, take the first 10% of your blessing, so to speak, of what your fruit is, and give back to the church, which is the people.
Yep.
For some reason, in the 21st century, 20th century, it's been designed to take it to your preacher. And if you don't take it to your preacher, now you're cast to hell almost, like you're not doing your thing. And I'm going to be as honest as I know how to be. This church thing got me a little messed up, just as a guy and in my neighborhood giving. And I know if I started talking about the percentage of my first fruits, I should have me an extra ticket going on into, buy one, get one free. because my whole thing is about what can I do to give back. And I give to the excess sometimes of being stripped down almost. So when we start talking about that from a philosophical basis versus a church basis, what should we really understand about tithing?
Honestly, we need to take out our checkbook, see around the folks that really have needs around us, and contribute to those needs. It doesn't have to be a particular institution per se. It needs to be the people that really desperately need it.
As your neighbor and as a Christian brother, don't you think the dialogue kind of starts fitting this institution-based tithing versus this giving-based tithing? And then I wonder if we separated the two, how much better our community might be.
Oh, my. Well, now we're getting into the concept of what it means.
I didn't mean to
give.
take your show another way, but this was a good point.
No, it goes to
it's neighborly.
It is neighborly. It goes to the issue of giving. Giving is really what the New Testament is emphasizing. Giving, if we look at places like 2 Corinthians 8 and 9, we look at the poorest of the people. Paul is actually castigating the Corinthians, and he's looking at them in chapter 8, verses 1 to 5, and saying, look at what the poor give. And now, look what you're giving, which isn't nearly as much, considering that you have so much money.
I'm just laughing because I did read some stats where you were saying the Christians only give 2.7%. And I found out that the low-income people give more money.
Oh, definitely.
All the time.
All the time. Much more than the rich do.
People than the rich.
Oh, boy, here we go. We're going to have to take a break at that point and make sure.
I didn't mean to mess you up this morning, Mark. And Clyde, if you out there listening, man, hey, listen up.
We are talking about being neighbors and what it means to be neighbors in the neighborhood. Our first segment, we were talking about the issue of giving and being generous to those around us. Proverbs chapter 14 certainly emphasizes that. HB love to riff on these kinds of things. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio at RadioNX.TV at the Cool Groove site. We take a one-song break. We are back. Warp and Woof Radio at RadioNX.TV at the Cool Groove site. Today we are talking about being good neighbors, and not just talking about it, but actually doing something about it. We talked in the first segment about the issue of being generous to those around us, to those who actually have needs in our community. And this is a really important, powerful idea, and honestly, not something that we do a really good job at because we're going through into our garages, hitting that big white button, the door comes down, and we go to our back porch and don't really see the needs of those folks around us. So we're talking in the second segment about the concern for the city. Here's a verse from Proverbs 21. A wise man scales the city of the mighty and brings down the stronghold in which they trust. Our concern is to apply wisdom to life, to demonstrate to other people that goodness needs to be the foundation for what we do. And so, HB, we're concerned about the city and what it means to be neighbors in the city. The concern that we have generally for Indianapolis is that we're finding Christians who are doing good in the city. Thoughts about that?
I think that we have so many little micro pockets in the city that unless we understand how to blend together to make it a macro agenda inside of our micro push, so to speak, in each of these neighborhoods and each of these societies. I mean, because you think about it. You can be inside of one neighborhood that's a 2 square mile area. And inside that neighborhood, you got about 6 different agendas that are operating independent and separately. Yeah. So if they never come together, and then that neighborhood never comes together, and other neighborhoods do that, then we got a whole bunch of just energy being wasted because we never get it to swirl, as I say, in this ecosystem of this is what you need, and we've got it. Yeah. And then as you transfer that, another organization might have a way to solve, for instance, let's just say teenage pregnancies. Well, this neighborhood might be the one who has that program, but right next door, there you go. So I don't think that we do enough in the city of bringing together the independent and the I hate to say this, but we got these tiers of people. Yeah. So we got these high-end authorities of here's how you fix everything, but they're not working with the people who need the help. Right. Then you got these people who need the help in the grassroots organization say, no, here's what we need over here, but nobody listens. Nobody hears it. And in the city, I guess what I see is the division of the haves and the have-nots. Okay. And just in a quick take, I see a lot of good people trying to do a lot of good things, and then I see the people who have the power and authority saying, no, this is what you need. And that doesn't work.
It doesn't work. We don't need the top down. We need the bottom up. We need grassroots. We need folks who are actually getting away from micro and going macro, or taking their micro to make it macro.
And that's tough because you have to have the micro issues. You have to have the micro plan to make anything work. Yeah. But then we have to be open to say, how do we funnel it through where now we're working all of this together to address the needs of the community, because the community has so many different needs that if we don't address them and we go in and say just education, well, that sounds good. Yeah. But around education, I guarantee you're going to find poverty or the lack of education. You're going to find crime. You're going to find no food. You're going to find food deserts. You're going to find all the problems that contribute to lack of education. And if you have a high crime area, you're going to find the same things that make the high crime area happen. And so we have to have micro agendas. Yes. But we have to know one another to bleed them together. And now we have a whole table full of food.
We have to know one another. Boy, that's a huge issue right there. There's actually a national initiative called Circles, where groups are basically come around an individual or a family. And there are 6 different parts of the circle. So there's somebody that, say, deals with finance, and there's another person who deals with housing, and there's another person who deals with a job. And basically what this initiative does is they circle or encircle an individual or a family unit that desperately needs various things. And these 6 different aspects of the circle bring what they contribute to that individual or to that family, which is the betterment of the family. And then, of course, from there comes the neighborhood idea. I think about somebody like Tamara, for instance, and her great emphasis on just giving diapers to families who desperately need this. Or, we're thinking about Shepherd Community Center. They're going to be coming in this next month and talking about what they do and the great educational emphasis that they have there. And, of course, Ashley Gervitz coming in here in our second hour going to be talking about the glue that Eastern Star is in their own zip code. This is a huge issue. But this goes back to the very point that we're making here, and that is that from HB's perspective, from my perspective, yeah, we have all these different initiatives. We're concerned about specific issues and things. But as Proverbs says, we are bringing wisdom to the table to help undo the top-down, doing it from the bottom up. One of the reasons why Collaborate 317 is around here.
Absolutely. And, Mark, we talk about the neighborly agenda. And, that's the topic of the show today. And I wonder how many times that we wake up with the thought of, who needs this instead of what do I want?
Yeah, exactly.
And then I see a lot of I want, instead of the consciousness of what can I give?
Yeah.
And back to Scripture.
Yes.
If you read Scripture, man, when you go out and concentrate on what you can contribute to the cause more than what you want, the true theory is you go give and then I'll trump you, pretty much is layman terms. That's what God is saying to all of us. You go give what you got. Watch me trump you.
Yeah.
And you ain't got no timetable on it. Ain't no dates on it. Consistently go do what you do good. Watch me make blessings happen. And so, I just think that we have to do a better job of concentrating on how we are going to just give, graciously give.
I remember something about, 5 loaves of bread and a couple of fish?
Yeah. Absolutely. And we want to use it only when we want to use it for the sake of making a point about how good God is. But when we have to use that for us, and you think you're stripping yourself down of some resources or some of your own personal good, then we don't want to believe that premise. Then we don't want that as our scripture then. But boy, you let us want to go talk about some stuff from a pulpit or to a group of people where you're trying to act like you got some knowledge about your scripture. We want to throw that out. But
one of the things that bothers me in this regard, this is part of what I do anyway. I was telling somebody this week about the fact that I traffic in ideas. A lot of folks deal with the physical. I deal with ideas. And, of course, when you deal with ideas, that means you have to be with people that have communication lines open, discussions, conversations, classes. So I'm actually taking a class at IUPUI. I go and meet with students down there. I have conversations with faculty members. All of these things, and here's the neighborliness that I deal with every week, and sometimes on a daily basis, is how do I communicate ideas in a way that are attractive to other people, that draw them into a conversation, that make them feel a part, but you still get the point across without beating them over the head.
Absolutely, because I say it all the time. I have to, I got some depth in this craziness. But if I don't sugarcoat some of the things that I'm trying to say, people will reject them. Much like when you feed your baby medicine or your dog medicine, you have to put it in something so that pill can get in. Most of the times when we're talking to people who are in need of what we're trying to give,
yes,
you have to bring it different.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? The approach is what it's all about.
I was sitting up here, as a matter of fact, I was sitting up listening to you and Clyde. I think it was a couple of weeks show. And the commentary was thick and it was good. And I was back there listening as a listener. And I was wondering, man, that was some heavy stuff they were talking about. But how many of the people that needed that got that?
Got that, yep.
And it was a thought. And not negative or anything. Just from a guy who can decipher verbiage to a person knowing and working in the communities that need help. How many people are hearing? And I think we have to slow down, even in youth programming. Back to the neighborly thing. Yeah. I go to the Y every Thursday, and I've got some young geniuses that I'm working with. I mean, I can see 6 or 7 of these kids being anything that they choose to be. But if we don't understand that they need to be at the table in the planning stages of what we say we want to do to help them, much like I said earlier, we're talking about what the poor need, and we're not mingling and toiling with the poor, like the diapers.
Yeah.
If you're sitting up in the office, how are we going to help the homeless? Or how are we going to help people who are disenfranchised, low income? Diapers are not going to come up in the conversation.
That's right.
It's just not, because we can't even relate to that. But if you have people in the room, like Tamara and some of the people that she's assisting, letting them know how valuable things like diapers are. That gets on the blotter.
Yep.
Now we're in good shape.
Now we're
but
talking.
we can't keep talking about helping people that we don't have at the table who need the help.
Right. You got to be there with people. This is called incarnation.
That's neighbor.
Yeah, that's neighboring. This is what it's all about. We're going to be coming back in just a minute after we take a song break. We'll talk about the issues of organizations around the city that might be contributing good things to this. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio at RadioNX.tv at the and we are back. Warp and Woof Radio, RadioNX.tv.
Virginia, I love you.
Our mother
and I miss you.
Oh, Mom. Yeah, we do love you.
Look, he said, "Oh, Mom, I know you got an earful of her today, don't you?" Whoo, HB was on fire this morning.
Oh, we're having a good time here. We're definitely doing some great chatting here in between segments and doing some talking about what needs to happen. And one of the things I was telling HB as we went to break and we're talking amongst ourselves here was what I've always been impressed by, HB, is what you've done here. You've brought in 18, 20 shows. You've got all these people under one roof. And tell people what your tagline is again and why that's so important to you.
RadioNext.tv believes that every message is relevant. And it's not sexy, and I tease all the time, people don't want to pay for good news or hear for news that informs or instructs to how to make people empowered. And I believe that that's what we're lacking in this new tool here, this technological tool. We have an opportunity like never before to let the meek, to let the lay people, so to speak, have a voice.
Yes.
So this is the whole reason that it was started. I did not know this was a seed that was planted 7 years ago. I'm not that good. The things that I have planned to go out and do, like starting the limo businesses and starting the nonprofit and my promotion company, those were things planned.
Yeah.
Build a SWOT analysis and say how you're going to go out and effectively do this. This was something that I know is ordained and something that I know God said, I need you to go do this. And if it's not me, it's going to be somebody else. Just a fact. Because this messaging needs to be. And so with every voice being relevant, Mark, that means that the little kid selling lemonade to try to help a program in his school to somebody who's a congressman who says we need good programs throughout our city. Everybody has a relevant message.
Yeah, they certainly do. This is I have to take issue with one thing that you said there. You said you're not all that good. Oh man, you are all that, man. As far as I'm concerned,
man. Thank you, bro. But I'm so over me, man. I kind of like my life. I like who God made me to be. I know a lot of me isn't good for the mix. I use that analogy all the time. You got just a little bit of vanilla abstract in the cake. Without it, it's not as good. With it now, wow, that cake is fire.
Yeah, there you go.
But, that's me. So I'm really not man-made, so to speak. There's a lot of people who need adulation and admiration from their brothers and sisters to feel like they have to keep going. And I have overcome that part of my life where I really don't seek a lot of that.
One of the things that stands out to me when you talk about vanilla abstract in the cake, which is a great metaphor, by the way, this really is an important idea, I think, when we think about what does the New Testament teach. We only find one time when Paul is doing something alone. Outside of Mars Hill, he has a team of people going with him doing stuff.
All the time.
Yeah.
But that means effective leadership means delegation of people who are better than you at a particular subject matter.
And you have to give it up and say, you know what, I'm not good at that. And then feel okay that you're not good at that.
In our city and as neighbors,
we
need to learn that.
Isn't that the
We
truth?
have to learn that if we want some successes, because what I watch is a lot of times an agenda will come in, and then and this is good conversation here, because I was talking to 10 Point Reverend Harrison last week, and we were talking about the delicate design of their organization.
Yes.
Of course, they're the spotlighted organization that receives the news media. They get funding and all those things because they've established themselves as a preventive measurement for the communities that they go into and serve. But we were having candid conversations about, okay, now that we have crime, those ingredients that contribute to crime, lack of education, lack of economic stability, lack of employment opportunities. Some of it is health and nutrition. Some of it is mental health. You got all these things in those neighborhoods. I guarantee you, where you have high crime, you're going to have those elements that need fixing. So now Reverend Harris and I are strategically trying to say, how do we get those wraparound services in those communities where everybody is a part of it?
This is something that strikes me as you were talking about this, I was thinking about some of the signs I've been seeing in airports when I'm traveling to speak and so on. And one of the signs is, if you see something, say something. I'd like to add to that. If you see something, do something.
Yeah.
If there's a need that needs to be met and you can meet that need, then go be a neighbor and meet that need. You don't need a program to change that.
Absolutely. And even if you have a program, I have a nonprofit. Well, my nonprofit might not be the organization that needs to help in that community. But dag, if I know another organization that would be better, but I let me trying to figure out how am I going to get some funding out of this versus sending in the best agent to help that problem.
Exactly.
You know, man, it gets so diluted and watered down because of greed, because of notoriety, whatever it might be. Even with 10 Point. I've heard a lot of people talk about 10 Point, and when I hear them talk about 10 Point, and when I hear they're always seeking the camera, and when it has nothing to do with lack of what they say they're trying to do, I'm wondering, well, what's your agenda?
Yeah.
What's your agenda if you're talking about an agency that is going into communities and say, we're going to reduce the murder rates? And I ain't talking about 10% or 20%. Some of the neighborhoods that they've gone into, they reduced the murder rates by 400% and 500%.
And that's something.
That's something.
Yeah.
So if the rhetoric is you're jealous because they're on TV versus the effectiveness of their organization, then I'm like, okay, what is the problem?
We're talking about being good neighbors here, and one of the focus points that we've made throughout the program is that this isn't talk about doing good. We're talking about go do good and do something, whatever you've been given to do.
Can I put a warning label on that?
Yeah.
Warning. When you go do good, I'll get ready to have some darts thrown at you. When you talk about doing good, can't nobody throw nothing because you ain't doing nothing.
You ain't doing nothing. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Excuse the grammar, Virginia, but it's the only way to say that. You know, it's only one way to say that.
I think we ought to make that out of a bumper sticker or something.
And it should be, because the truth of the matter is, man, and people will tell you this, especially the wisdom, and since this is wisdom and knowledge, if you're not doing anything, they're not talking about you. Right. The devil is not attacking you or your surrounding area if you're not busy trying to do something for good. So I think one of the
And we are back, Orphan Woof Radio at RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site, and we have spent our first hour talking about doing, not talking about talking, but talking about doing, and the emphasis on neighboring. We want to give a quick shout-out to Neil Cox, who I'm sure is probably listening. If not now, he will be on the podcast. Always grateful, Neil, for your good support. Thank you for what you do in the community. Appreciate the fact that you're bringing communities together. That's really important to us. And certainly something that what we're doing here in our radio show, Warp and Woof Radio, is bringing in folks who are doing good in the community, who are believers in Jesus. And we have just exactly that person here with us today, Ashley Gervitz from Eastern Star Church. Thanks so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you here. Wonder if you would just kind of start us off in our first 10, 12 minutes. Start us off in our first 10, 12 minutes. Start us off in our first 10, 12 minutes. Start us off in our first 10, 12 minutes. Start us off in our first 10, 12 minutes. Start us off in our first 10, 12 minutes. Start us off in our first 10. Tell us, give us an overview of yourself, your family, your church, maybe what you do in the community, just kind of an overview.
Yes, well, first and foremost, I tell you, God has definitely an awesome way of letting life experiences bring you to the exact moment through that divine timing and being able to serve. So for me, I guess I'm the typical millennial in some aspects, but trying to show the good of our generation as well. I've always known as a little kid that I love serving, doing, and just being connected with community. Growing up, I was of a very diverse, blended family. I tell you, some would always say growing up we were the United Nations, but, you know.
That's great.
Yeah, great, but, you know, from an outside lens, there was always that first spark and curiosity, like, how are they coming together? So growing up in our household, it was all right, well, you can't just always base the first things you see. So what's the next thing that you're ready to show others about? So we were always Aesop fables, looking at the biblical, the do good work stuff.
Yeah.
So that's really transpired where today I've been able to kind of live that out and just be more comfortable and free of everything our parents really taught us to live today. So
that's great.
Yeah. I grew up in what I call Noblatucky, Noblesville. I tell you, it's my home. It's always going to be my home. But when you find where God really wants you to be by identifying your purpose, looking back, even in Noblesville, where I was like one of the only minorities in my class room settings, that voice was developed really to now listen to the least lonely left out today. Post being at Ball State University, getting into work life, then venturing back into school at IPY, Ivy Tech, I realized I'm exactly where I need to be, and being able to also listen to just what's actually happening with that realm. Leaving corporate America, I decided to then branch into higher education, working in admissions at Ivy Tech. And it was like all those stories you would hear for individuals, why they wanted their degree, what they were looking to accomplish, it puts something in you where you feel accountable of helping them deliver that.
Sure.
Yeah. I feel like God does that to us every day, the things we want, and he'll put things in us to make sure we're accountable for getting that to occur. So I'm like, okay, let me incorporate that in the work. From there, it was just a springboard where opportunities as far as being out in the community started to opening up. It was also transfusing around the same time from a social justice lens with Trayvon Martin. I'm like, all right, I'm moving more. And where do I need to be? So I found that led me towards higher education transferred to public service, then taking work at the Indiana House of Representatives, working as a senior legislative aide and internship director. And I was like, okay, this is another way of serving. And typically in an area, especially for underserved communities, that was not getting that information relayed back to them. So it was just awesome to really have that experience. And I tell you, that experience has now really helped transfused into great work doing community development today with Eastern Star Church. Just briefly about that lens, I joined Eastern Star Church 9 years ago, and probably the best decision that I ever did. When I also... About 9 years, actually it's about 10 years ago, I started visiting churches. I mean, I'll be honest, the best thing we can do as Christians is be honest and truthful about our testimony. Realized I was at the breaking point of finding out where God needed me to be. And I thought, okay, maybe while I'll dabble it out, I'll just find myself just hanging out in a big congregation. I mean, 17,000 members, right? Yeah. I can get in, get my word, go out, and take that back into the community. Now, God had a whole nother way. Like, okay, go do that community stuff right now. But little did I know in the pipeline, as I was growing spiritually, there was this opportunity, which actually was about 2 years ago, that the church opened up. Well, really almost 3, where they started doing a strategic planning of what's called the ROCK Initiative. The ROCK Initiative was our way of making sure our service and benevolence was not just on the short term Band-Aids on long-term wounds, but really going the next level of how we are doing community transformation, kingdom building, self-efficiency every day. So, here I am again thinking I'm just going to be comfortable sitting in the pews. And little did I know, it allowed me to feel comfortable volunteering my time, helping with this strategic planning. And I tell you, that was an aha moment. Like, God was like, this is where you need to be. Listen. And I listened and I followed. And I'm very thankful today actually, that I'm able to serve as the community development manager for our church.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
With our big congregation, it's really important first to say we're one church in 3 locations. We all are still one body, as what we should be as Christians, even though we may be in different places or economic classes, ethnicities, or whatever other category you want to put in there.
Sure.
But I'm really thankful for the teaching, preaching, and coaching Pastor Jeffrey Johnson gives us every Sunday. And just the encouragement of always taking what we hear, not only embracing it in our minds, not letting on to our own understandings, but executing God through us and making sure we're doing great actions as well. And it's great, especially with the Rock Initiative. I'm able to live that out every day in every aspect of life. Yeah,
that's really great stuff. One of the things that stands out, just by the way, you're listening to Warp and Woof Radio, RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. Ashley Gervitz here from Eastern Star Church. One of the things that stood out to me a couple weeks ago as we were getting ready to have you on the show was Pastor Johnson actually sent me a handwritten note with your brochure from the Rock Initiative. I actually brought it in my bag today. But I was so impressed by this. And one of the things I want to just kind of come back to and have you kind of tease out a little bit further is this idea that you're not going to put a Band-Aid on something, but that you're going to treat a long-term wound. Tell us just a little bit about that. Yeah. How does that work literally in your community?
Yeah, so we'll say as a church, we are very close to hitting 100 years of being organized as Eastern Star Church. When you hit that mark and you realize the actual mission of evangelism and discipleship, how is that in today's society, right? We have as well what's called Jewel Human Services, which is now Eastern Star Church Care Center, where literally that is our benevolence branch, where we have the rent utility assistance, we have special outreach events, and even as well the food and clothing pantry. Those are the short-term things, right? And when you get into a cycle where you know you're fitting that need then, but just knowing as well how God transforms our lives every day in our now and in our long term. He knows plans well before we even realize the indicators of Him being in our life. If we're fully connected to Him, we need to start embracing that model as well. So when I was talking about the short-term wounds on the short-term Band-Aids on long-term wounds, there's nothing wrong with what we're doing with that benevolence. But let's go a little bit deeper. And going a little bit deeper is seeing exactly where the point of healing and mending and care is needed. And we have to realize if we're going that deep, we have to give individuals hope. Let's plant seeds there of faith and be with them, walk with them like God walks with us in our everyday life with empathy, love, hope, passion, and see that they're able to grow just as we do every day. So that's really how I feel with the Rock Initiative. It is. We, of course, we love, love, love every aspect of our care center. Love it, literally. A lot of the work we do is integration of both of those areas of service every day. And that's another way that we are able to instill trust for transformation to occur. So,
the transformation issue is a big deal for us, and certainly one that we want to continue talking about. Just before we take our break here today, tell us about your zip code specifically, because we actually started our show at 10 o'clock by talking about zip codes and about being neighbors. Tell us about your zip code and one thing, just one before we go on break, about the biggest need there in your zip code.
Yeah, so when an individual hears 46218, of course, you go to your quick reference of mind. Yeah, there's a lot of blight. There's a lot of means of having a, we'll say, socio poverty rate at about 40%.
Wow.
And that's living at or below the poverty line.
Understood.
An average household income of about $25,000. And also a staggering unemployment rate, which is higher than the actual Marion County average as a whole. I'm starting off in the reverse of what you mentioned, Mark, because I think that's sometimes in society where we go wrong, where we see the problems, but we're not willing to have faith to go in and help correct it. So with 46218, it's all the positive things that we are really trying to fulfill. And ROCK is actually an acronym for Renewing Our Community for the Kingdom.
Oh, nice.
And based off of Malachi 3:17 and the aspect of a jewel, think about jewels. Before you go to a jewelry counter, does anyone know the process it was taken to let the buyer see their value? We got to be willing to see that, going deeper, there's that long term, that it's going to be dirty. It's going to need some cutting, some refining. And literally, I see that in 46218 today. There are so many awesome long-term neighbors that have been the short-term neighbor. As they say, they're the rookie on the block, being there 20, 30 years. There are so many beautiful, as I call them, babies or kids that are literally exposed to so many awesome organizations and services. There are many opportunities for housing development, but we can't have that unless we get out there and help expose it. So I'm always, for 46218, going to bring all those positive things there first.
We're really grateful to hear all of that. And HB's over here with a big smile. We were talking about that first hour, even before we got started this morning. You're just singing the same song, and I'm grateful for that. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio at RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. We're going to take a song break. We'll be back with Ashley Gervitz from Eastern Star Church. We're grateful for her presence. We are back. Warp and Woof Radio at RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. You hear us every Wednesday from 10 until noon. And what we do is help people around Indianapolis get to know Christians who are doing good based on Titus chapter 3, 1, 8, and 14. We certainly have a person in our presence today, Ashley Gervitz from Eastern Star Church, who is emphasizing the ROCK initiative, doing just exactly that. Ashley, we're really grateful that you're here. And off air, we were discussing some of the things that were really important from your perspective. And one of the things that you, first of all, mentioned was, it kind of reminded me of a book I read some years ago called The Dirty Life. And it was about a woman who went from the city to the farm and literally got dirty. And it was so different, going to something totally different. In your case, when you talked about off air, we were talking about getting dirty. What you meant was participating in the event so that you are part of the process. Why don't you expand on that for us and our listeners today?
Yeah, I think more or less we have to be willing to get dirty, be seen doing our work, and not just showing the after picture and not exposing the process that has been really the glue of getting to victories, right? I think often, sometimes as Christians or whatever endowed faith you have, we are told to fear not, but we fear exposing just that refining process of the dirty that was in our lives, but also the purification process that is really something we should be embracing every day. That right alone, getting dirty, is someone else being able to be removed of fear, feel like they have someone to connect with, that there's empathy, the love, the faith to walk with somebody, so they're able to go and do the same work, right? That all falls down to that evangelism and discipleship building.
It really strikes me as I hear you talking about these things that we could maybe summarize this by saying life is messy.
Life is so messy. Yes, it is so messy.
And one of the good things about life is that grace is messy too. You know, the idea that Christ came to die for our sin, but to, in so doing, defeated death in that process. That's, boy, talk about a mess, but a mess that was conquered. So grace literally invests itself in the mess.
Yes.
So that's exactly what, when I think about things like this, and you know, this idea about becoming dirty, getting involved in the community itself, I think about folks like yourself that are actually invested in your community and doing these kinds of things. Tell us about maybe just one project, a very specific, tangible event or person or place that this particular Rock Initiative is helping right now.
Oh, wow.
And you can
like just
expand
down to
more.
one. Well, okay, so I'll do my best to lump in a pretty package, so it is one. But really with the Rock Initiative itself, our goal is building a sense of community. So how do we define that sense of community? Really enhancing the range of housing options. So not only are we looking at the housing continuum with apartments that we're building in our mixed-use facility, but also 40 to 45 new homes in a mile radius
great.
of Eastern Star Church.
Wow.
Yeah, so phenomenal. The underlying things of financial security, so combating the payday loan systems, predatory.
Wow.
You're more tempted to do that if you only have one bank in your whole zip code, right?
Yep.
And lastly, our other goal of having the enhanced formal and informal educational opportunities. Of course, we have a long, great standing relationship with Arlington Woods Elementary across the street. That's phenomenal. But we're learning every day. So how can we help from an informal lens
Yes.
get the misnomers in society out, but also help bring people together through education, workshops, trainings, and all of that. So all of that's there. So, but if I had to pinpoint one getting dirty situation, I would have to say it's coming more alongside house building.
Okay.
The house building itself, one is often or not, many may have the hope of home ownership one day. It's a generational thing. It's equity and investments.
That's right.
That's a beautiful thing to be able to say one day you have keys to your own place.
Right.
But one of the most dirty things I've had to do is look at the process of why do we have so many abandoned homes, right? It's easy to go and put citations on doors, reporting them with code enforcement. Forget that.
Yep.
Why is that house abandoned? Let's ask that second question and then not be afraid of getting dirty to get that why answered. That's left to learning some true stories and voices of that community. Most importantly, they are strong neighbors, and unfortunately, that their strength was just no longer harvested in an area. So it wasn't as if I'm going to say, hey, let me just go buy your home. No, we're not doing that like that. But I wanted to feel as if I could maybe help them as well. So one had like 6 payday loans. That's why they were losing their home. I don't want you to lose your home. What can I do first to help you? And the process of getting rid of that is so dirty.
Oh, man.
But it can go on for hours, just those barriers and dirtiness.
One of the things, and there's so many good things that you're talking about doing here, the one that stands out to me, and frankly the one that immediately raises my blood pressure, is the payday loan issue.
It is horrible.
It's the actually there's an essay on my website, warpandwoof.org, where we talk about financial rape.
Yes.
And that's exactly what's happening in payday loans, where you are cashing checks and then giving exorbitant interest rates to poor people who desperately need the immediate financing right now. But at the same time, there's going to come a day, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks from now, where you're going to have to pay an exorbitant interest rate on top of whatever it is to pay that back. and the awfulness of, frankly, let's just call it what it is. You are doing that you are enslaving a person in financial shackles when you do that.
Yes, yes. And even to piggyback off that, what makes it okay to make money off of misery?
Oh.
And knowing we have so many of our brothers and sisters that don't know that there are others maybe out there to help them.
Right.
That they have to utilize a system that is just going to enslave them further and further.
Yes.
And then I can go on for hours about policy stuff about it, but to even know, like, how is it okay that our state can now approve, they called it the cowboy loan program. I don't even want to know the official name. I just know how horrible it is. But 200% interest was approved that lenders can now do to our neighbors. 200%. Like, wait, regular banks are marginalized at 18%. So how are we okay with 200%?
Boy, I'm going to have to look into that because that's not something that I'm very familiar with. Certainly something that needs to be spoken to.
Yeah.
One of the phrases you just actually put into the form of a question, which is really powerful and important, is how can you make money off misery?
Yeah.
And this reminds me of Isaiah 58 and 59. What is true justice? What is God asking us to do? The issue is always to take care of the poor, to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. James 1:27 is very clear. Take care of the orphan and the widow. What is the key thing that people are going to see about us? They're going to see that we have done something for somebody who cannot give back to us.
Yes.
Isn't that the whole point behind giving?
Yes, absolutely. It is so important. Even something that I live to every day is with Matthew 25, right? And in whatever in Matthew 25 that best connects to your heart, your soul, your purpose, connect with it. But we have to see that we have already been liberated because a sacrifice from Christ has been given, freeing us of sin. But it's our job now to appreciate the reward that's been given. And the best way we can appreciate the reward is by doing unto others what's been done for us. Yes. I switched the words around a little bit with that, but I can't fathom waking up a day knowing there's been certain blessings in my life, and then the abundancy has now become gluttony and greediness, and we're hoarding it for ourselves, when that abundant blessing could easily be able to help lift somebody else up.
Right.
And helping them feel like our good acts can be someone's light in their faith to being able to feel like their lives can be saved too. Yeah.
The concern, of course, obviously, is what we're not how we live, but how we give. Our concern as Christians is that really, if I could say it this way, the whole point of Christianity is one word: others. Our focus is on others. So you had mentioned beyond becoming dirty, that is getting in the process of doing the work that you're doing at the Rock Initiative. You had also talked about the issue of collaboration and the necessity of collaboration. Yes. So talk about why that's so important and powerful in your community.
Well, without collaboration, it leads to hesitation.
Ooh.
And the hesitation comes because many of the neighbors have told their problems over and over and over again. And every single time that they tell it again, they're thinking, is this the day we're going to be free of our concerns? So, with organizations coming in, not collaborating with others, what hope is it that what they've listened to is actually going to be fixed? There needs to be more convening of organizations that do the same work, so they see that the competition really isn't there, and really the magnitude of their work can be greater because more people are going to be served.
Right. One of the things we see in athletics is competition, and competition is good. It has its place.
Yes.
But in order to compete, you have to have cooperation with your team to get that done.
Yes, absolutely. And by all means, like competition, yes, it is important for many things in society, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to, I feel, our neighbors, we don't need to compete with them.
Mm-hmm.
They're already dealing with too much to that they have to compete with daily.
Mm.
Not only talking about their financial burdens, they don't even know if they can compete because they don't even know where they're going to be resting their head next.
Yes.
Right? Or where their next meal is coming from. Or because the competition of groups is so loud, it's diluting their message getting back. Maybe it's about education, and that organization is not delivering what could be maybe that glue of helping someone be saved by getting connected to resources. But hopefully there's more convening that happens. I can tell you, especially with our Rock Initiative, because we're covering some really broad topics, but it's with us identifying with the organizations. They found their glue, their gifts, and how can we just convene and make sure we're executing our partners getting to the direct access to solutions for our everyday neighbors. So.
What are some of the organizations that you work with, specifically, individually, exact organizational names, however you want to do that, that you work with to do this convening?
Oh, wow. There's so many, but I can tell you a few that are jumping off the top of my head. INHP is one of our primary partners because it's one thing to say, hey, we're building homes, neighbors, but if, for instance, there's an organization such as INHP that can help them embrace their homeownership journey.
Tell people what INHP is.
Oh, yes. It is the Indianapolis Housing Neighborhood Partnership. And their specialty is home ownership education. They have a collective of mortgage lenders, which are not predatory. And that can really make sure everything is being set provisioned for the full blessing of homeownership when they're finally getting to that point. So INHP has been a great partner, especially knowing 40, 45 new homes. There's also renting assistance programs that they teach, credit and budgeting. I mean, there's some awesome things. Down payment assistance, closing cost assistance that, I wish we had all the money in the world, but we don't as a church, but they're set and gifted to help provide that. So
what is
awesome.
What is part of the responsibility of the individual or the families? Do you do anything such as sweat equity, for instance? Do people contribute to either the actual building of the home or in some way contribute to the sustenance or sustainability of their home?
Good question. Now, I can tell you one of our other partners is Habitat for Humanity.
There you go.
Yeah, and it was truly a blessing knowing of the 10 homes in less than 1 year that have been built, 2 of those homes were Habitat homes.
Nice.
So Habitat does have a sweat equity program that literally from classroom settings to being hands-on to the build to understanding the actual kind of mortgage process for them. 0%, by the way, when they get their keys on the mortgage lending. That is the form of equity that is asked of. Now, for us specifically for homes outside of the 2 habitats, I'd say our equity isn't so much that they're building and doing the labor. And we don't even really package it as sweat equity, but it's so important for you to see that you have to work and understanding what is to come with being a homeowner.
Yes.
So yeah, we really are highly, highly, highly encouraging you to take a home ownership education-based program.
Mm-hmm.
Take the time to review your credit. Take the time of knowing some of the lingo that's going to be thrown your way, such as the debt-to-income ratio.
Oh, boy, yeah.
What is your possible property tax? Do you know that if something breaks, do you have the skills in your toolbox to say, maybe I can fix that before going to someone, and they're going to maybe charge you some astronomical price?
Or having a neighbor that might be able to help you with it.
Or a neighbor being able to help a neighbor.
Yeah.
It's so important. So, we have the sweat equity more or less from that manner, but it's not so much of the sweat in a way that you're buying into it, because our goal is with our houses that we're doing everything to make it affordable for you.
There you go.
Primary example, we brought actually on staff a construction superintendent, so general contractor.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
How many churches have a construction superintendent?
You know what? I pray many have or will aim for that.
Maybe after this interview, yeah.
Definitely. But even by doing that, the housing cost was being able to save anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 per build.
Wow.
And that's something now our neighbors don't have to worry about.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't have to pay it back.
Yeah, so it's been phenomenal.
Wow, man. You know, let me just say that when we have discussions like this on this radio program, and folks like yourself, Ashley, come in and tell us about the very practical nature of what you're doing. And once again, highlighting what you just said, you put on staff, on your church staff, somebody who's a construction supervisor. I mean, seriously?
Yes.
I mean, I have never heard that before.
Yeah.
So, you know, fist bumps to you,
Thank
Pastor
you.
Johnson, for the whole of the Eastern Star Church, for being such forward-thinking folks in this regard. After the housing issue, and we talked about the predatory loans and so on, what are some of the other issues that you face? What are some of the other things that you would like to talk about that you're invested in right now?
I can tell you my number one investment is goal number one. And goal number one is build a sense of community among the people who live and work in this neighborhood. Every day I try to clarify that the goal is not just who lives and works in the neighborhood, but who is connected to the neighborhood from all manners of life, right? So building a sense is thinking of cool, innovative ways of bringing our neighbors together. What ways can they serve together? What means of listening first, acting second, can be provided to assure that those who want to work in a community or serve in a community know exactly the deliverables our neighbors want.
Wow.
So I tell you that is the glue. I feel sometimes with community development that is sometimes missed or maybe neglected. And it's great that you can have bricks and sticks, but if you don't have the buy-in first of the neighbor, listening to their voice, understanding their wants, the development is just just construction.
And that kind of goes back to something I was asking about earlier about the equity issue, where how much of a buy-in is there for not just the individual, the family, but now you're talking about the community. And are we listening to the voice of the community who has already been there so that they don't feel like, you know, we're coming in to invade, we're coming in to tell them what to do or say to them, you know, if you don't do it this way, then that's wrong.
Absolutely.
This glue concept about building community is a big deal.
It's a major deal. So, you know, putting together an initiative could have been a fly-by-night thing. This is what we want, checklist here, oh, we have it, and boom, we're ready to execute.
Right.
But that leads to, as what you're talking about, invasion. And none of it's going to work if those that we say we're going to help don't connect with how we're helping. And sometimes using words of help or serve, and I'm doing this for you, is all the barriers that are going to continuously be put up.
Right.
So our initiative, again, was 18 months. But it wasn't just 18 months of us listening. We're very thankful and blessed that for almost 25 years, Eastern Star Church has been located in the neighborhood it's been trying to serve. With the word, teaching, preachings of Jesus is exalted and the word's explained. Now, the Rock Initiative isn't a new thing. That was a vision. Literally, Pastor Johnson wanted to see this as a church be taken when we first got there. But with the importance of trust, that listening, neighbor buy-in, that's really what's been occurring since our church made it there. And hopefully they can see by us being good neighbors. We're not the organization in a neighborhood. We are a neighbor that we're trying to do everything we can be to be a good stewards. And even leaning into that, while we had our 18-month strategic planning, there were focus groups, not of the congregation and the community stakeholders only. The neighbors were a part of that process. In addition to help assure that what we're trying to do is for decades to come.
Yes.
There's no grant end date, start date for what we're doing. This decades of building that we're trying to do and be compelled to always see the utmost attention to. We have even as well a neighborhood association. We got created for the neighborhood. So we have Arlington Woods Neighborhood Association, which is serving the area where there was never an official neighborhood organization. That's there. They meet monthly. But what's even been the glue behind that is while we're getting that neighborhood association going, it's literally been a kind of teaching, facilitating workshop, giving all the empowerment tools in the beginning. And it's been a shift where now you're starting to see the neighbors leading, filling those positions and executing out all the decisions that maybe's been in their heart, maybe in their households. But now it's a connected network, and they're executing it. So like even on April 7th, there's a big old community canvas day. They're getting word out about what they're doing, asking for other neighbors to get in one board, looking for other service opportunities to be able to help neighbors. And it's literally a blessing to see that daily.
It really sounds to me kind of like backdoor evangelism. You literally are drawing people to the gospel because of what the church is doing in the community.
Yes, absolutely. And so I threw out the millennial bit earlier in my description because I feel as if that backdoor evangelism is the maybe the key or highlight for more millennials today. I still remember where growing up in my household, families were impacted by 9/11, so war. Our families also impacted by the crash of the market. Yes, in 2000, where we thought it was the end of the world. No, not of our timing. But we're more doers, and we want to see that of the action first before they say, like, the full yes. So I feel like what we're doing today is the new harvesting of our next brothers and sisters accepting Christ by our actions.
Yes.
And so hopefully we're able to do more, saving souls that way, while we're doing this kingdom building.
The other day, one of my students, I meet with students at IUPUI to talk about their studies and think about things from a Christian vantage point, part of what Comenius does. And one of the students, we were talking about evangelism, and they were talking about how some groups, kind of target an individual at lunch and just go sit to them next to them and talk to them about Jesus. And they were asking, how do you feel about that? And I said, well, I'm much more of a relational kind of guy and that kind of thing. And they said, well, how do you do evangelism? And I said, well, because I'm going to grad school again. I've gone back to school again.
There's grad school, me too.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to have to talk about that.
Yeah.
One of the things that we emphasized was my responsibility in evangelism as writing really good academic papers. How is it that I will attract people to the truth if I don't show beauty and I don't do goodness?
Absolutely.
So truth, goodness, and beauty, but we need to lead with beauty and goodness before truth.
Yes, absolutely. And I think with society and the world as it is today, we don't know what's fake news. We have so many streams of information that is being thrown out. But as a result of that growing, we're condensing the spaces for verification.
Ooh.
And the verification is our actions. Are you lifting the ink to life off the paper by action? Or even as well, having more faith in who we're delivering a message to for them to decide it. Be more informative, not persuasive. And if they act on it, are they going to be upset later on that they've walked a certain way?
Right.
So it all falls back to the empathy, relationship building. I am one-on-one with you with that because I feel like that's the best tool we have in true transformation.
That's right. Yeah,
Transactional versus transformational.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sitting across the table from you, looking eye to eye.
Yeah,
this is
right
huge.
there.
This is
so
it.
huge.
This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
We have about a minute left. In about 30 seconds, could you just tell us one thing that you'd like to leave the audience with today?
Yeah. Get involved. Follow what is on your heart. If God continues to speak to you upon your gifts, show your thanks by showing someone else. Because your acts, by showing your gift, may be that one glue of helping save someone's life. And that's what was my testimony of recommitting my life to Christ. Because of someone else's random good acts. So find that place. If it is volunteering with the Rock Initiative, where you can find out more, my shameless plug of
Please go ahead.
Eastern Star Church's ESCRockinitiative.org website, or feel free to give me a call at 317-591-5050, Ashley Gervitz. And I would love just to take the time and find out what your love and passion is in helping them feel connected to something of service. So
That's great. You know, if you're listening to live or if you're going to hear the podcast later, you know, the thing that people always miss when you're doing radio is, you know, the thing that we have right now, and that's looking at each other eye to eye.
yeah.
And I see the dance of the gospel in your eyes.
Thank you.
And it's wonderful to see that. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful thing to see. And for those who are listening, that's what I see in Ashley Gervitz. Thank you so much. Please give our best to Pastor Johnson.
Yes, will do.
And thank him for the personal note that he sent to me
Yes.
about the Rock Initiative. I'm
Will do.
grateful. This is a wonderful platform and a great opportunity. And for those who have just joined us, coming in on other programming, you've been listening to Ashley Gervitz from Eastern Star Church. This is Warp and Woof Radio from RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. You hear us every Wednesday from 10 until noon. And we are coming back next week. Looking forward to that. Pastor Dr. Clyde Posley will be back with us. But HB, it's been a joy to be with you today.
They can lock me back up now.
Thank you, man. I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
All right, brother.
Until the next time, we'll see you.
God is not absent on my campus. This is how one Comenius Institute student sees our work at IUPUI. Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Eckel. Multiple studies show that 75% of Christian young people may leave the church altogether after attending public universities. One of the key ingredients to maintaining Christian faith commitment through college is personal, spiritual investment in students. We are committed to spending time with Christian young people. The Comenius Institute, where Christian wisdom and college life meet.